Mic check. Mic check. 1, 2, 3.
everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Zebulon Board of Commissioners work session, August 15th, 2024. First, we will need an approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. Before we get into the agenda, interim town manager would like to make an introduction.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Toya Easterwood, our new first IT director. So,
Come on up.
earlier today that she comes to us from the state with more than 25 years of experience, but I'm sure she can tell you more about herself than I can do. But it's really a pleasure to have her here with us.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Tanya Easterwood, and I have about 20 years of experience in IT that spans across education, technology systems, and then human resources and finance. So one of my favorite things is each one teach one and having a heart to serve. So I hope that I'm able to bring several things to the town of Zebulon, and I look forward to the collaboration of working with everyone. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir.
Next on the agenda, Coastal Carolina Railway. Alleyway agreed.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, I'm coming before you asking you to approve a memo of understanding with Coastal Carolina Railway for public access utility installation in the adjacent alley behind Whitley Galleries. You may recall in February I stood before you and I had you approve an earlier version of the agreement. Since February, we've been working closely with CLN, a railroad association, to finalize the agreement. There has been one change in that agreement that's substantial from the last time I presented in front of you. That is, they will no longer allow us to do the demolition. As you may recall, Public Works previously was going to do the demolition of the rail, the wooden timbers, and dispose of all of that. They, for liability purposes, did not think that was appropriate. So they have made that change. All other changes are legalese and in nature. So, but I did want to remind you, since it has been several months since we talked about this agreement, what the responsibilities are for all the parties. In the first part of the agreement, we will be responsible for installing a fence delineating the boundary, that 20-foot boundary of the alley, so it designates where we can go and where our limits are. The second piece is we'll be installing signage at the entrance there off of Arundel Avenue. Basically, that will lay out the rules and regs for that use of that alley. Basically, you may recall from our discussions that the alley is going to be used for maintenance purposes only, no parking. It can be accessed for dumpsters or anything like that or maintenance related to service those properties there. It also gives us access for our stormwater. It also gives access to the city of Raleigh for maintenance of their sewer lines that come through the area. The one change that I mentioned earlier, that from us no longer doing the demolition portion of the rail, we have agreed to pay Coastal Carolina Railway $10,100 to complete that work. That'll be completed within 45 days from once they receive the check. And then the last piece of our requirements is the town will perform general grading and regular maintenance of the site once completed. Just to recap, the total cost of this work laid out for you in the MOU is $34,075. Based on analysis done by Ms. Shannon Johnson of our Economic Development Department, the payback is 2 years. So I do want to let you know that we have worked closely with our attorney, Mr. Philip Hackley, on this agreement. We think this is a fair agreement, benefits all parties, and our recommendation tonight is to approve the MOU of Coastal Carolina Railway and approve ordinance 2025-08. Prepared to answer any questions you may have.
Question, comments from the board? Commissioner Davis?
No, sir.
Commissioner Clark?
No, sir.
Commissioner Harrison,
No questions.
Commissioner Miles,
No questions.
Commissioner Baxter.
No questions.
Are we ready for a motion?
I am. I'd like to move to approve ordinance 2025-08, the North Alley Agreement with the Coastal Carolina Railway.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Roll vote. Commissioner Baxter,
Approve.
Commissioner Miles,
Favor.
Commissioner Harrison,
Favor?
Commissioner Clark,
Favor.
Commissioner Davis.
Favor.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We also need a motion to approve the agreement. We need an emotion for
The
both.
MOU? Yes. Okay. So I would like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the town of Zebulon and Coastal Carolina Railway.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Roll vote. Commissioner Davis,
Favor.
Commissioner Clark, Commissioner Harrison,
Favor?
Commissioner Miles,
Favor.
Commissioner Baxter.
Approve.
Motion passes. Thank you.
again, guys.
Thanks, Chris.
Next, microtransit interlocal agreement.
Hello, good evening, Mayor and Board. I'm here to give you guys a little bit of an update on where the microtransit agreement is, as well as seek authorization for the signing of the interlocal agreement between us, Wake County, Knightdale, and Wendell. So just a little timeline, back in 2020, Wake County received a Federal Transit Administration Integrated Mobility Innovation Grant for around $394,000 to help fund and start and do a study for the East Wake Smart Ride program, which is the Smart Ride as we know it right now. Back in March 2022, the official kickoff of the Smart Ride service happened, and we started service of this on-demand microtransit service in Zebulon. And then in December of 2023, the Zebulon Board of Commissioners, gave staff authorization to apply for the Community Funding Area Program grant for the continued funding of the Smart Ride service. And then in January 2024, the CFAP application was submitted, and that was submitted by Wendell as our main partner in this program. And then back last month, or 2 months ago, June 2024, the Board of Commissioners approved the FY 24-25 budget, which included $75,000 allocated for the town's part of the funding for the Smart Ride service. And then as well, currently Campo is going through their approval of the Wake Transit Plan for this year, which would include the allocation of funding for the CFAP program, which is helping to fund 50% of this project. So that's kind of the timeline on this. And just to give a little bit of an update, so I reached out to Commissioner Baxter to let her know, because I know that there were some questions at a past meeting about the fares. So this program is going to remain fare-free. So I've gotten confirmation from Wake County and all the other partners involved, and in order to go back to fares as part of this interlocal agreement, it would require a approval from all parties. So that would include approval from Wake County, Zebulon, Knightdale, and Wendell. So don't be too concerned. We are not returning to fares. This will remain a free service for the citizens of Zebulon. As well, we've gotten some clarity on how payment is going to be administered for this project. So the payment will be administered by Wendell, and we will pay Wendell bi-yearly, so twice a year, for half of the necessary funding for the year. So that's going to be about $37,500. And with this being a budgeted item, we understand that there may be additional costs or less costs depending on how the service is operating and what the operating costs are. But the aim is to remain under that 75,000, and is the goal of all the communities and not just us. But if we need to, we will come back for an administrative adjustment for those additional funds. Wake County is currently working through some contract negotiations with their vendor, which is why what you're seeing today is a draft. So it's a final draft. We don't expect that there will be any major changes on the end of our agreements with Wendell and Knightdale, and we don't really see there being any changes that will really affect us. But Wake County is going through some contract negotiations with their vendor, more on the side for their services that are provided through the Medicare funding than through this funding, and they're holding off on approving any of their agreements at this time because they want to make sure that the information is going to be accurately reflected. But they do expect that this agreement will be in its final, ready to be signed form at the beginning of September or at some point in September. So. Wendell is seeking approval from their board, similar to what we're asking you tonight, next week on August 26th. Or actually, that might be 2 weeks. And then Knightdale has already authorized the signing of this agreement back in June. So every municipality is kind of in a different spot right now. And just keep that in mind. With this being a draft, we understand if it's something that you guys want more clarity on, or you want some more questions answered before signing, or if you just want to hear what Wake County, how those negotiations go, that is totally fine. We can bring it back to you guys at the September meeting to discuss. But if you guys are looking to authorize it today, the action that would be needed is to authorize the signing of the East Wake Microtransit Interlocal Agreement. And the signing parties for this particular agreement include the town manager, the finance director, and the town attorney. So I'm here to answer any questions, or if there's any questions that I can't answer, I'm happy to get those answers for you from Wake County or our other partners.
Any questions? Commissioner Baxter?
Yeah, so can we authorize the signature of this agreement with the caveat that if there are any significant changes to the draft, that we are given an update and it comes back before us?
Yeah.
I don't anticipate that that's going to happen. But since this isn't finalized, I know that we've, like Knightdale has already signed on. I'm sure that Wendell will. And I have no problem with how it's presented. I think that the agreement is tight. But if something does change that is going to have some kind of significant impact, can you come back before us?
We'll let you know, even if it's just a information piece and you guys are still good with it, that's totally fine. We're happy to bring any changes to this agreement to you guys at the next meeting.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Any other questions, comments from the board? So do we want to make a motion?
I would love to make a motion for us to authorize the signing of the East Wake Microtransit Interlocal Agreement.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Roll vote. Commissioner Baxter.
In favor.
Commissioner Miles.
Favor.
Commissioner Harrison.
Favor.
Commissioner Clark.
Favor?
Commissioner Davis.
Favor.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item. Review officer appointments, resolution 2025-01.
So what we have is the planning director and normally the second person in that department would sign off on plats and things like that. And since Mike is gone and Adam is leaving, we needed to make the change to remove Mike and Adam and add Chris Ray, who has done this before when we've been without someone, and then also put Kate as someone that can also sign. So this would be a document that would go to Wake County, which would remove Mike and Adam with the Register of Deeds and add Chris and Kate until we get people in the planning department to sign these documents.
I have a question.
Commissioner Baxter.
So in the resolution, it is only stated that we're going to be removing Michael Clark from the, as a review officer. Do we need to also list Adam Culpepper? Because I was not aware that he was also listed on there.
Yes, it should be there. It looks like the wrong document got printed, so yes. So it would be Adam and Mike would be removed, and Chris Ray and Kate would be added.
So can we make the resolution just as is? Did you just print the wrong version for us?
Yes.
Or should I also
You can state that you want Adam added to it is fine,
Okay.
and that way it's very clear what your intentions are.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Out of curiosity, how many are we allowed to have on that document? Just two? Are we allowed just two individuals? Or?
We have had more than that on there before. We've had the town manager is normally, has been on there before, but when Mike and Mead were here, Joe asked that his name be removed. So his name was removed a while back when Mike and Mead were here.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Any further questions, comments?
So once we hire a planner, it will come back before us to correct it once we hire a planner?
Yes, it has
Put
to
more on
come
there?
back to you for approval to remove people that are no longer authorized to sign, because this goes to the Register of Deeds, and they have these names on file on who
Okay.
can and cannot sign these documents.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments from the board? Are we ready for a motion?
I am. I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2025-01, amended to reflect that Adam Culpepper will also be removed as a designated review officer.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion? Roll vote. Commissioner Clark?
Favor.
Commissioner Davis? Commissioner Baxter?
Approve?
Commissioner Miles?
Favor.
Commissioner Harrison?
Favor.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda, football field uses fees.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the board. I am bringing information that you requested regarding 2 football rentals. There's 2 organizations, the Bearcats as well as the Aggies. And just as a brief overview, we were asked to provide a cost analysis of the 2 football programs to include the fees that are being allocated or being applied to the rental request of the two organizations, as well as the cost to the town. We've also wanted to update you the last time, I believe it was in May at your second work session. We reviewed the existing policy regarding field rentals, and the cost recovery policy and the fee schedule were adopted with the budget process in the end of June. And the update to the 501c3 or school organization resident rate less than 50%, and we also updated the 501c and school organization ticketed event to the resident rate less 40%. So as a review, the Bearcats, I thought you might be interested. As of Friday, the participation for the Bearcats was shared with us that it was 87. Their rental request included 42 practices, 5 home games, lights, and 3 field paintings. The resident rate and fees was $6,395. The nonprofit reduction was $3,585. The total charged fee is $3,345. The total town expense is going to be $3,400. The first document that I shared with you outlines their field request. There's a difference in the practice rate and the game rate, and that's the difference of a ticketed event versus a non-ticketed event and why the ratios are slightly different. So the document in front of you, the first 2 columns, the first one is just the straight standard fees at the resident rate. The second column demonstrates the reduced rate. It shows you the games, the football, field painting, as well as the practice location. The last column shows the town expenses. I think it's important to clarify because after I shared this very similar document back in May, there was a statement made that we were trying to charge the Bearcats for the grass seeding, and I wanted to correct that. The only things that we have identified as charges were things that were identified in the fee schedule, and those direct rates does not change the fact that we have to seed our outfield because at that time of year, you don't have the same rate of Bermuda turf growth. And so we're gonna have to seed it in order to have a safe playing space for the football players. And this is something we would not have to do if we didn't have football played at this location. And so, no, we are not charging the Bearcats that fee, but we will incur that expense because we're gonna have to do that treatment. The next document that you have is for the Aggies. They have, as of Friday, they shared with us they have 92 participants, and they have rented for 42 practices as well. They are not utilizing a town-owned location for their games. They are renting property elsewhere. The resident rate that has been applied to the Aggies is $1,890. There's not been a nonprofit reduction. There's not been one requested, and we are not aware of them being a 501c3. They've had to stand up their organization quickly, and so that could be part of why they would not have that designation yet. But we've not heard a request from them at this time for that reduced rate. So the total charged fee is $1,890 just for the practice field. There's not additional staff expense or equipment expense or field paint or grass seeding for the times that they are playing. I wanted to share with you an opportunity that I mentioned before. If you wanted to pursue, you have the strategic plan grant that was expanded in your budget this year. In the past, you've only funded $5,000. You did receive applicants for that $5,000 in late winter, early spring. I don't believe they have been allocated yet, but there was also an additional $20,000 that we had discussed with you coming back and doing another cycle after the budget was adopted. And so I'd like to share that this might be a better opportunity to set some grant goals for the strategic plan grant that you wanted to do this half of the year, and that you could consider opportunities for eligible expenses, which could be uniforms, equipment, rental fees. We know there's some that are using town-owned facilities, but there's some that may want to use other facilities that the town doesn't own, but they're still going to incur rental fees. So that is an opportunity for you to support those expenses and just figuring out a way to do a fair application process and do selections and awards. I just wanted to share that as an opportunity in case you wanted us to bring something forward.
Questions, comments from the board? Commissioner Baxter.
So then, if I'm understanding correctly, we can go ahead and, by staying within how we've administered strategic plan grants and the expansion of the funding that we've allocated to strategic plan grants, we could then use $3,400 of that as a strategic plan grant for the Bearcats.
I think that you need to set your goals and make the application process. Then yeah, I mean, if that's what you want to do, you want to make it eligible for them to be able to take those fees and use it to, or take the grant funding that you allocate to them and put that towards field rentals. I think that, I mean, if you write that into the grant goals and something as an allowable expense, I think that that's something for y'all to decide.
I think that we should consider doing that for the future, but we've had, like, the Bearcats come before us multiple times now, and even I think that the sticking point from earlier with their 501c3 designation has been cleared up, and so I would like us to be able to move forward with absolving the fees for the Bearcats, and then can we move to do a goal setting session at our next work session so that we can get whatever it is our strategic plan grant goals are going to be kind of solidified and put down in policy?
Are you asking me or the rest of the board?
Is that a discussion for the board?
Yeah, this is a discussion for people who have thoughts.
Commissioner Davis?
My only question is, I know we're talking about the Bearcats, and we're probably talking regarding because they have the 501c3 status, but are you stating that we would not do this for the Aggies as well? Like, what are your thoughts for that?
They haven't come before us with a request. And so I'm hesitant to award money to people who haven't asked for it. And that could be something that once we do get the strategic plan grant, our goals set, then they would have the opportunity to come back before us. And at that point, they might have their 501c3 application in, and then they could make that ask.
If I may jump in.
Sure, please.
My only caution to you is taking an action before you set goals, rather than setting goals before you take an action. So I would say maybe we should have a conversation around the goals setting before you take the action. That way you're not opening the door
But we
or
do
picking
have
winners and losers, kind of.
Yeah, we do have goals, though, that we have discussed
Okay.
prior when it came to the grants that we handed out. You know, are they nonprofits? Are they offering a service that the town is not currently able to fulfill on its own? So we do have those from the past. If we're going to create something that's a little bit tighter, then I think that is probably a really great idea, but I would love for us to just be able to move forward in this instance with, you know, what we already have established as our goals and as, you know, like the parameters for how we've distributed these funds in the past.
If we have those goals, then maybe we should measure this request against the already set goals. Again, because I'm just thinking that you take an action tonight, I won't be surprised if by the end of the day tomorrow, you're getting a request to do the same. I just want to make sure that we're being objective.
So you said another request.
I mean, I'm just saying.
He's saying he wouldn't be surprised tomorrow. Once we
Yeah.
approve tonight, somebody jump tomorrow.
Exactly.
The
That's
same
what I wanted
thing.
to clarify. That's
Somebody may be watching this tonight and watching where the direction goes and then decides that, okay, I'm going to also do something similar. So I just want to make sure we're not picking winners and losers, if I can put it that way, but rather making sure that it's objective in that. So if we have prior goals, maybe we measure this against those goals. If we want to refine those goals, that doesn't invalidate this request, but it just pushes it a little bit out while we look at what you have. So either way, I'm good. I just want to make sure that we are being objective.
May I add to that? Okay. I think something that might be helpful is that being able to go through that process, there may be several other organizations in the community trying to do great things that you want to just make sure that you can weigh it against. And this is an opportunity where maybe you could give more than just the fee schedule or the fee rental recognition. And so being able to go through that process, we worked with the Bearcats previously while they navigated the nonprofit process as far as their fees. We worked with them on that payment plan. That is something we could continue to do and work with them throughout this invoicing series if you want to give them the opportunity to go through the application process where you could have you could write into it that fees are eligible for expenses effective July 1 through your fiscal year. So you could prorate those expenses. And so there could be, like, I believe some of the teams have already ordered equipment and they've already ordered uniforms. And so those things could be things that you can take into consideration.
But those are capital purchases and those have never been part of our strategic plan grants in the past. And
I understand, but it could, I mean, you haven't done that in your past processes, but you've got a new pot of money. You've got a larger pot of money, and you could navigate looking at whether or not you want to allow those expenses. Does that make sense?
I think we're looking at, Commissioner Clark, I'm sorry.
I just feel like what about all the others that usually come, and here we are just saying, okay, we're going to do this now. And I think Ty's right, we need to think out things and get our process correct.
Yeah.
Commissioner Hershey.
I actually just wrote down, we had, I think, 4. I am all for supporting our youth and our football. Like, I think that's great. And I'm super excited about having football back in Zebulon with our youth. But we had, I think, 4 or 5 nonprofits that spoke to us in regards to the strategic grants plan grants that came up. And I know in particular, Eastwick Education Foundation, there was an arts nonprofit. They all came and presented their nonprofits to us in hopes that we would award them money from the strategic grants. So I don't want to ignore them. And like, if we're going to award, I want to award them as well. Like, I'm all for awarding everybody as much as we can, but I don't want to like just award one when we've had several nonprofits come before us for support as well. So I'm for awarding everybody, but I just want to make sure that everyone gets, equitable opportunity to get funded from us, if that's possible.
Commissioner Miles?
No, I just want to make sure, like I said, we hear the different nonprofits from East Lake Foundation to everybody coming in, just figuring out how we can make sure we are setting precedents now. So trying to figure out, that's what I toyed with all day, and I think I spoke with each commissioner personally, somewhere trying to figure out what we can do. We know these football organizations need help. They're starting out, whether they got 501c3, I know we have rules and regulation guidance on that. The Bearcats were able to get there. I applaud them for that. Now we have the Aggies, which we know a transition took place. That was a merger that took place. So we don't want to leave out the information. The Vikings, they were the Vikings when they came before us. So they have came before us to just change the name. There was one piece of the puzzle that moved. That was about it. The kids stayed the same. Everything's still the same. They're just under a new name. Basically, so we're trying to figure out what and if we can do now to help these people get the funding that they need to get them off the ground.
Okay.
I think we have we're talking two different issues here. We're talking fee waiver, which we can do right now.
Correct.
And we're discussing making changes to the policy later on. So I hope we're not trying to get both of these kind of crossed up here.
I agree, because I think that this is actually using this as a strategic plan grant is very different from how we have been originally discussing this, which was as a facility use waiver, which we have done for many organizations. We have one coming right up in a couple of days with the 8K. We've had a fee waiver done for Angel Prints, and they were not even a 501c3 for the 2 times that we did the fee waiver for them. And so if we're going to be consistent, like this is a fee waiver request. I mean, while Sheila did talk about strategic plan grant usage, like I am all for that as well, but like this did come before us as a facility use waiver, and I think that we need to discuss it as such unless we have a clear timeline and a little bit better guidance for when we're going to be able to get the full discussion for strategic plan grants kind of nailed down and set in stone, because they've asked for this for a while. We've continued to push it off. It wasn't a strategic plan grant thought until this evening. And I'm not discounting it, because it maybe could be used that way, and we might be able to expand what we're able to fund with that. But overall, this, like initially this was a facility use waiver, and I think that it should be addressed as such tonight. And then if the Aggies want to come back with their own request for a facility use waiver, then they should. And then we can discuss that then.
And the other nonprofits that has already presented their applications, that's under what we have present. We're talking about going back, making some more changes. Sheila.
I'm just like fire chief now, multiple titles. No, I think that that's a valid point that you're talking about two separate things. However, the items that you're talking about waiving fees for, you have a policy that you lean on for fee waivers. And so I think you evaluate those requests based on that criteria. And so that's what we're suggesting, because you currently have a cost recovery policy that recognizes reduced rates for nonprofits already, and that you're now looking at waiving fees because they've come to you. But where is the line that you're gonna draw? And I understand that you've had conversation, but how do you tell this one no and this one yes and that one no? It's honestly, it's just like really to protect y'all and the citizens at the end of the day, because you want the community to feel that there's a sense of consistency. And so that's why we were suggesting the strategic plan grant, because I heard in the meeting last week, Commissioner Miles talking about startup fees and some other things, and I knew that the request that originally came from the Bearcats included other expenses beyond just the fee rental. So I was really trying to hear what was being said and bring a solution that doesn't put y'all in the middle of facility rentals, because you're probably, you could open up a door where you're going to be inundated with requests. And then this gives you an avenue to address it, but to even think a bigger picture, and you may be able to help these organizations more. So that's why I brought that to the table. I mentioned it at your meeting last Monday, and I wanted to bring it this evening just to give you an opportunity to think how this plays in logistically, but also even if you don't want to go the strategic plan route and you want to waive the fees, I think it's important, even if you take the criteria from the special event policy and apply that same criteria and have that come before you and review it that way, but there needs to be something to make that there's a clear process of how everybody can achieve the same benefit. Does that make sense?
So then we would not be doing facility use waivers moving forward. People can't come to us and say, I have a need, and we would say, well, sorry, thank you for wanting to bring your event here, but you're going to have to go through the strategic plan grant funding.
That's up to y'all. That was something that we had discussed with y'all at some point. If you want to remove that ability from the special event standard, the ability for y'all to waive fees, I mean, we can bring that back to you where you remove that option, where it puts the responsibility on the organizations to plan ahead for that grant period. So that is definitely something that y'all could consider if that's what you want to do.
So what we see before us now, you utilize pricing section 10, the new program startup, kind of the guidelines, is that what it is? In the fee waivers?
What's that? You said something about
Yeah, section 10, the staff must follow the trends and encourage you to develop new programs. That's what you utilize this to get the pricing here?
What,
For the
I'm
discount
sorry, what are you
pricing?
looking at?
In the fee waiver?
Cost recovery policy?
Correct.
I don't have that in front of me, but I can go get it.
You share it to everybody else.
Yeah, I brought it.
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks.
Jen.
Can't pull something out like that.
Well, I think it's important for us to have that in front of us
It is,
if we're
so.
talking
Yeah,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Pull it out, you can rip it out information, you don't.
Can you start it out?
So it was on page 56 of
I
your
think it
budget.
was. I think it was.
And under rentals and nonprofits, it says reduced rental rates for 501c3 or school organizations are available. 501c3 school organizations, town residents rate less 50%, and then the 501c school organization ticketed event resident rate less 40%, which is what we had just gone over.
Okay.
And then the next section is that requests for rental rates must be submitted in writing no later than 60 days before the event date. Please include the rental application, fees, or describing whether or not it's a free or ticketed event. If it's, we need 501c3 documentation and detailed explanation of how the event will benefit town of Zebulon residents directly.
Okay. Still one more I'm looking at, the new program startup, is that new program startup, do you have that one in there? It should be in the covering costs as well. Can you read that one real fast, just so everybody know the one I referenced to? That's section 10 I'm talking about. I don't have the page in front of me either, I just screenshot it from the page.
So new program startup, this is specifically referring to town of Zebulon
town
program, like
programs.
town
Okay.
offered programs.
Okay.
So it said staff must follow trends and are encouraged to develop new programs that will benefit the community. New programs create opportunities to maintain higher levels of community satisfaction. Cost recovery may be phased in due to development and startup costs. These programs should be able to feasibly meet the appropriate level in a timely manner. Those not able to do so should be reevaluated before continuation. And what
Right.
that's referring to is the chart in section 7. We have levels 1 through 5 that talk about whether or not it's a mostly community benefit or mostly individual benefit. And then there are descriptions of the level of cost recovery. So cost recovery is going to count like part-time staff, t-shirts, if we're ordering t-shirts, if it's equipment, supplies, things like, that's what it's talking about as far as the rate of recovery. When you start out with a new program, say there's a new dance class that we're trying out in town, it's a little bit different or edgy, it may take some time for it to build up, so you may need to try it a time or two before it's going to reach its expected cost recovery. And so what that statement states is that we are going to be always working towards that cost recovery, but if we if we're running a new program that cannot over a period of time begin to meet its cost recovery, then we would need to let that program go and try something else.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from the board? What's your pleasure?
Well, I'm going to make a motion to waive the fees for the Bearcats.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I think when we make that motion, we also need to consider the Aggies. We know we have two teams, a total of 179 kids. The Aggies didn't come before us, but they have came before us as the Vikings. That transition that they did, I think that took place, we really need to consider those guys as well. They're struggling just like the Bearcats are.
I agree that we do need, I totally think that we need to have them in consideration, but they haven't asked. And I don't think that they're not struggling, and maybe we need to have a conversation and maybe talk to them and say, come ask, but they haven't came and asked, and I don't think we could give something that hasn't been asked for. That's just my feedback.
They have
Get them
asked.
to come
Yeah,
before-
like,
so
can we-
if they came before us as the Vikings, are y'all saying if they come before us now as the Aggies, like say we can get them to come in our September meeting? Our September board meeting?
With that same
We
thing.
approve it then?
And
But they're not a 501(c)(3).
yeah, they're not.
We were about to prove it before the Bearcats just got theirs. We were about to prove them the same thing. Not even a month ago, 2 months ago.
I wasn't.
I mean, we were we were about to prove the Bearcats the same way.
Oh, well,
Because at that time frame, the Vikings were a 501c3, and the Bearcats weren't.
right.
I understand the importance of a 501c3 status. I guess what I'm trying to understand is if we have an organization that's trying to do something for our youth, and we're already in football season, they're already making motion to move, they've already came before us, why are we now pressing so hard that they have to be a 501c3 status?
But did they come before us? Because from what I saw, their former head coach came before us, but not.
The entire staff came. The entire team came.
Okay, so now they're a new organization with a new leadership. Like, I would be more comfortable, and I'm not saying we don't do it, I would just be more comfortable with them representing themselves and having a conversation and asking for help. Because we have people that have asked for help, and we're approving, and I'm not comfortable with approving people that haven't.
As I'm listening, the only thought that I have is, do you know the entity? Because if you're going to approve, like, I know we're talking like team names, and I don't know the answer to this, but if you're spending money or allocating funds, the motion would need to, what is the entity that's going to receive them? And it seems like for the one that is the 501c3, that is a known entity. I don't know the answer about the other one. Maybe there is one, but I don't know how. I would question what the motion on that one would be, only because who is the recipient of that? Even if it's just an individual, I don't know, but who would be the recipient of that money?
We're not saying no,
Or
we're
the
just
fee
saying
waiver, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they just need.
Well, there's a motion and a second, and I think the discussion was just to make sure moving forward, we do include the other teams that are out there. I think that was just a comment.
And I want to add, I'm not weighing in on the necessity of the application process. I'm just saying for purposes of a motion that might come up here, I would want the recipient, I think the recipient would need to be identified.
With that being said, I actually like what he's suggesting. I think that if we can get them to come before us with the clarification of that, then we can go forward.
Clarification of what?
Of who's the recipient. If the majority of the board is already feeling comfortable, have them come before us.
Okay.
The right representatives, because they've changed, right? We initially were dealing with the Vikings, they've changed their name. There's a possibility that they've changed their staff. Bring the current staff before us with their request, not necessarily worrying about that they're the 501c3, but come before us. And then, what's the problem?
I don't think if they don't have a 501c3, I don't think,
501c3?
yeah, whatever the 501 is, if they don't have that, I don't think there should.
Well, they can still come before us.
I'm going to say because
they
we've
can still come
had
before us.
organizations that don't have the 501c3.
Yeah.
We've had 2 or 3 that don't have the 501c3. So that's not going to be a drop dead for us because we have organizations in the past. This board has. I know we just approved for a walk that's going to take place. They just got the 501c3. That's nothing against them. That's just stating the
And that's
facts.
a process to get your 501c3.
And we've done it twice automatically. So it's a process that's not going to happen overnight. We all know that.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just think they need to come before us. That's
Okay.
Okay, if that's agreement,
All right.
I'm good with that.
The motion is to, I don't forgot, what was it?
The motion is to waive the fees for the
For the
Bearcats.
Bearcats, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Roll vote.
May
Commissioner
I
Beck.
ask a question?
In favor.
Okay.
May I ask a question? What fees are being waived? I think you need to be very specific about what you're waiving and what you're not
Give the
waiving.
total. Just give the total.
$100, the remainder of the total town expense.
Hang on. The
Roll.
town expense was exceeding what their rental was, the reduced rate of their rental. So are you looking to wait? So their discounted rate is $3,585. Oh, no, wait, $3,345. The town expense was $3,400.
Okay, so I'm going to amend my motion to $3,345, the remainder of what they were going to be charged.
We have an amended motion. Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
We have a second. Further discussion? Roll vote. Commissioner Davis?
Favor.
Commissioner Clark? Commissioner Harrison?
Favor.
Commissioner Miles?
Favor.
Commissioner Baxter?
Favor.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila.
Is there any other questions or comments?
I have a question. Where are we with strategic plan grants? Where are we with like process, how are we gonna distribute? I've had 2 nonprofits that presented that have emailed me and asked me about it, so I just wanna be able to give them something. Where are we with that?
That's not a process that I facilitated, but my understanding is that we were planning to bring that back to you. It's your September meeting, because it was typically something that you did through the budget process, but there were a lot of moving pieces, so it's something that did not get picked up in June. And so when we were working through this, we realized that that did not get done in July and that we plan to bring it back to you. My understanding is in September for you to allocate that.
Okay.
Do you want us at your work set? That's what the manager and I were just talking about. Are we coming back to you for a process for the 20,000 in September at that work session?
That'd be great.
Yeah, that work
Yes.
session would be good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion to adjourn?
Before you,
Sorry.
sorry,
Listen, you got to be quick. You got to be quick.
we don't
And
play
he
like
was
that,
ready.
Speak up.
I should have said this earlier, but I apologize. Just wanted to update you on the town clerk situation. So we're going to go back to the drawing board and seek the services of a recruiter to help us. We reached out to a couple of recruiters, but we've also indicated to them that we'd like this to be done on an expedited basis. So hopefully I can come back to you maybe via an email or something like that in the next few days to let you know how we're moving forward with that.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ty.
Thank you.
At some point too, I know we had mentioned hiring the IT versus a technician or whatever but I think we need to also focus on a technician or something at some point. Because one individual trying to do all IT, especially from the beginning, but that's just something that we need to be thinking about.
With that said, is that completely now in her ballpark, or do we completely go to her now for all IT needs?
So we still have a IT contractor in place, and so she will be overseeing that. But yes, the answer to your question is yes, we go to her for our IT needs.
And I guess the other thing too is how do we transition from the contract folks?
Yeah, how do we get from up on those?
Right.
So we will still be having a contractor on board because we do know that there are some times when you have outside our needs that need to be met or weather events happen and,
Okay.
so we will still have that option because that's a department of one person.
Right.
And having that contractor on hand is very important. I'm hopeful that if that addresses the technology piece, I'm hopeful also that in the next week I can update you on where we are with regards to our planning director and making sure that the leadership in that department continues to function as it does. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?